Hello, good morning. My name is Coach Rohan or Rohan Chandra, and today I'm going to be going over the installation process for RobotGo, essentially covering what we covered last Thursday, where went through what software that you guys would need to begin doing software development for your teams. So I'm pre-recording this session, or I'm recording this session here just because I recorded it in class, but just thinking back on the recording, I realized there would be a lot of pauses, and I made a slight mistake with some of the GitHub token stuff. And so I wanted to have this recording available so that you guys could, in the event that you maybe misunderstood something that I explained last week, or maybe you didn't get a chance to fully finish the installation, you could have this resource and just go through it at your own pace and without any big interruptions or big long pauses. So we're going to get started here with just the installation. And we're going to start with installing Git and setting up GitHub. Now, I just want to take a minute to go over one more time what exactly Git is and what the main use of it is. So, like I said last week, Git is a version control system designed to track changes in the code. Now, I understand that it might be a little complicated sounding, but basically, that's a long way of saying that Git is software that keeps track of your code. And it keeps track of the history of a piece of code, meaning that you can make changes, right? You can create a file, right, like a program, make some changes to the program, add some code or something, and then you can come back later, and if you make some new changes, Git will keep track of the history of your changes, essentially every version of the code that has ever existed. And this is really good for a couple of reasons. The main one is that let's say you have a piece of code, and let's say that you make a change to it that ends up accidentally breaking it. Rather than having to start from scratch, you can look through the history of your code and you can find a version of it that was working and you can revert back to that version and then try again. An example that I like to use is like a Google document, a Google Doc. With a Google Doc, you can keep track of the history of the document. So like you can see like who made what changes when to the document, you can see what changes were made, and if you need to, you can always go back to a previous version. And Git operates basically in the exact same way, except for code. It keeps track of the history of a piece of code so that you can see what was done when, who made what changes when, and if you need to, you can go back to a previous version of the code in case you accidentally break something. So the other thing that Git is really good for is working with a team. Git is the underlying software that will allow us to collaborate, essentially work with other people on our team. And it lets us share code with other people on our team so that we can all work together on the robot. And it's a much more efficient way of doing it, of sharing code with your team than, say, emailing code or texting code or discording code. And Git is very useful, not just for what you're doing here on First, but also if you ever decide to go into a software career, knowing GitHub and being fluent with Git is basically a requirement. So it's good that we go over Git now and use it now because we're developing skills that you'll use much later on. So the first thing that we can do is we can install Git. That's the first thing we need to do. So you can click on this link here, and it will take you to the Git page. So you can see I already had this page up here. I'm going to reopen it. And you can see right here that there are three types of downloads. If you're on a Mac computer, you'll click this one. If you're on a Windows, you'll click this one. And if you're on a Linux or Unix computer, you'll click this one. Now, I'm personally on the Windows computer, so I'm going to click this button right here, Download for Windows. So when I click this, it takes me to this page here. And I'm going to click right here, click here to download. And you can see the download is loading right up here. Looks like the download's in progress and it looks like it just finished. So I'm going to press this button, I'm going to open it, and .exe means it's like a program. So I'm going to run the program to install Git. And right here, looks like it's still loading. Yep, looks like it's loading here. So let's just give it a minute. Okay. And right there, you can see that little icon popped up. And you can see here that it's going to make you go through a couple of things. So first is this big public license agreement. You can just click next here. In fact, for pretty much everything, you can just keep clicking next anyways. So next, 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 next. next, 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 and install. So now it is installing Git right here, and we're just going to let the install play out. You can see that I just basically needed to press next for everything. You don't need to worry too much about any of that other stuff. If you were in like an actual software job, then you might care more about that stuff. But for our purposes, just working on FTC software, you can just go with the defaults and you should be fine. So we're just waiting for this to finish installing right now. Should be another couple of seconds, I think. Looks like we're almost finished here. It looks like see post install. There we go. So once you see this page, you'll have finished the installation. Now what you can do is you can unclick view release notes. That isn't really important. And you can click this launch git bash. I just like to do that just to see it. And I want to show you guys git bash real quick. It's not super important, but once you have git bash installed, it looks something like this. And once you have this program, it basically means that Git was installed successfully and you are good to go. And you can actually see right here, if I put Git in right here, we're never going to use the command line just because I think it's unnecessary and a little bit too complicated for you guys. But I just want to show you that you can type Git in here and all of this stuff appears, right? It shows you the different things you can do with Git, branches, all this stuff. We're going to go over this next week. But I'm just showing you this because I want to show you that after you've done this installation, Git has been installed successfully. So now that you have Git installed successfully, we're going to move on to the next step, which I think I should have made this an optional step now that I think about it. But I'm just going to go over it just in case you guys want to do this. Basically, when I say creating a folder for all my GitHub projects, I included this section because when I was young and when I was first learning GitHub for the first time, I found that I was cloning projects, downloading or working with projects in different folders left and right. And there was no structure and no organization, and it made it very hard for me to actually do work in GitHub. So what I like to do is I like to have a single folder where I have all of my projects in one place. So for me, this folder is in my documents. So what I'm doing is I'm just pulling up my GitHub folder right here because I just want to show you guys what I'm talking about. And again, this is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it just for organization purposes. So you could see here in my documents, I have a folder called GitHub, and all of my GitHub projects are right here. So it's really easy for me to access them, for me to see all of them. You can create this folder if you want. It doesn't have to be in your documents. It could be at your desktop too. But I just like to have it here just as an organizational thing for myself. But again, optional step, you don't have to do this. However, what's not optional is our next big step, which is creating a GitHub account. So I know we talked about Git already. Now, so what is GitHub? They're not the same thing, and I want to make it clear that they're not the same thing. Git is software that allows us to keep a history of the code and share it with people. GitHub is a website where code is stored in the cloud, or as we say in like developer speak, it's stored remotely. Remotely means it's stored in the cloud. And it can be accessed from anywhere and anytime because it's like a regular website. And you can also download code from GitHub, or as we call it, cloning, onto your computer, which means that it's now stored locally. So code that is stored on your local computer is called storing it locally. Code that is stored in GitHub or in the cloud is called storing it remotely. And Git is really cool because it allows us to do the collaboration like Git. So basically, I have this example here where like person A and person B are working together. And let's say they have a shared project they're working on, or as we say in code speak, a repo on GitHub. And they also have a local copy of the repo themselves. So they have a local copy each, and then there's a copy on GitHub remotely. So person A can make some changes to file 1, right? And then they push those changes to GitHub. When we say push, we mean that person A is taking whatever changes they made to file 1 and is putting them on GitHub. And then person B can pull those changes from GitHub onto their own local computer. So that's how changes are shared. And I'm going to go over more of this next week. I don't want to get too sidetracked. Let's focus on the installation. But if you want to just consult this slide in case you're extra curious, then the slide is here for you to look at. But now let's look at creating a GitHub account. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to www.github.com. So let's go there, github.com. So this is what GitHub looks like. Now this is my personal page here. I already have an account, and you can see I have all my repositories here. But for you guys, it'll probably look more like this. So let's sign out. Yes, I do want to sign out. It'll probably look more like what's about to come up here. Just a brand new page, right? No account. It will just look like this. What you guys are going to do is you're going to click sign up right here on the top right. So sign up. Now, unfortunately, with my computer, GitHub might be a little bit slow because their big screen, the next screen where they have you sign up has this animation running, and my computer doesn't do too well with animations. I'm going to give this a couple seconds to load, but in case it doesn't, I have the next steps on my slide already. And actually, you know what? Oh, yeah, see, the page has become unresponsive. So we're actually just going to close out of here. Basically, what you're going to do is when you click this sign up button in the top right, it's going to ask you to provide some information. An email, a password, a username, and they ask you if you want to receive emails or notifications from GitHub. You can choose either yes or no. They're also going to have you answer some questions about how many people are you working with in the team? What things are you interested in? Just questions to get data about their users. Those questions aren't important and you can answer them however you want. But the main thing is once you're done going through all of those steps, you should have a GitHub account. And then it will look something like what I showed you earlier with my page. So actually, I'm just going to sign in here. Let's see. Provided it will load. There we go. So this is my email. This is my password. I'm signing in. And your profile page will look something like this. So your page is probably going to look a little bit different from mine. I've had my GitHub account for many, many, many years. So I have a lot of repositories or projects that I've worked on in the past. I have a little bio here, organizations I'm part of, a little graph here of all my contributions. All of this stuff just comes from years of working with code. Your page is going to be a lot simpler. But once you can see this page, you have a GitHub account. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to create what's known as a GitHub token. Now, what is a token? Basically, GitHub is all about security, right? They want to make sure that the only person who has access to your repositories is you. And this isn't too big of a deal for us just because with first, it's not super important. But let's say that you're an entrepreneur or something, and let's say you have some big software product. Obviously, you don't want anybody else to have access to your code, right? Because they could steal it, or they could try and make it malicious, change something in some way that breaks it. Or, for example, in my case, right, I work on a government job, and the work that I do is very secret. And obviously, we don't want adversaries to be able to hack into our code, right, and take it from us. So this token here basically is almost like a ticket to a concert, right? Only the name on the ticket, right, the person who has their name on the ticket can get it. And if anyone else tries to use your ticket, obviously they won't be able to get in because their name's not on it. So a token works in pretty much the exact same way, almost like a ticket. Okay, so to create the token, what we're going to do is we're going to click on our profile picture right here. And once you do that, you're going to go to settings right here, this gear, settings. Once you're here, you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you should see this developer settings. So let's click this. And then once you have developer settings up here, you're going to click Personal Access Tokens and Tokens Classic. So let's click Tokens Classic. Now, as you can see, I already have some tokens made here. This FTC token is the one that I use for my day-to-day, and this is the token I actually created last week. I'm just going to delete this because it's not really important, and I'm going to create a new token. So we're going to create a new classic token for general use. So you can give a name to your token. So I'm going to call this Rohan's second cool token. And this is very important. I want there to be no expiration date on my token. Basically, the reason we're doing this is because let's say you put 30 days. Then what's going to happen is after 30 days, your token is going to expire, and suddenly you won't be able to do anything with the code anymore. And you'll have to make a new token again. So in order to prevent this, we're just going to create a no expiration token. And what we're going to do is we are going to click all of these right here. So all of these, we're going to click, just go through, okay, bum, 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 bum. Click all of these, and once you've done this, you're going to generate a token. And what you're going to be greeted with is this string of characters right here. Now, it's very important that you follow this message right here. Make sure to copy your personal access token now. You won't be able to see it again. If you leave this page without copying this, what's going to happen is you'll lose this token forever, and then you won't be able to use it ever again, and it basically becomes useless. So what I like to do is I like to open up a notepad document or any like a Word document, just somewhere where I can copy this to. It could be anything. And I like to copy this and paste it in my document. So now what I have here is I have a notepad document with my code right here. And we're going to use this in just a minute. So keep this around. Don't exit out of this, but just keep this with you. And once you've copied it, now we can close out of this window or go back to our profile. So here, profile. And we should be good to go. Now just to show you this whole token thing, like what happens if you just leave. So I'm going to go back to the tokens page right here. You can see that your token is now gone, and you won't be able to see that string of characters ever again. See, if you've lost or forgotten this token, you regenerate it, but anything using this token will need to be updated. This is why it's really important to copy this when you can, right, and not to lose it. Otherwise, you'll have to make the token again. So now that we have this token, we can use it for our final step, which is installing Android Studios. And Android Studios is known as an IDE, or an internal development environment, and that's just fancy speak for it's where we're actually going to write our code. We're going to use Android Studios, and we're going to write our code in there. So, like with before, we're going to go to this link right here. Okay. So let this load, and we are going to download Android Studios. Just this big green button right here. Download Android Studios. First thing it's going to make you do is it's going to make you accept this big terms and conditions, blah, blah, blah. So you click this, you download. And again, your download should come up right here or wherever it is. And it's going to take a little bit to install. 2 minutes, in fact. But long story short, what you should have after this is just Android Studios. And I'm just going to wait for this to install for 2 minutes. So I'm going to pause this, and then I'll resume once it has finished installing. All right, so it looks like it finished installing. And what you should have is something that looks like this. So once again, we're just going to open it. And I imagine since this is a gigabyte, it's going to take a little bit. So I just opened it, and let's see. It should open. I think I'll pause the recording again and resume it once it finally opens. Okay, so it looks like the installer is running. I just saw a notification appear. And let's see. Looks like it's still coming up. There we go. So yes. I don't know how much you can see there. I have a second monitor, and it looks like stuff is happening there too. Nothing major. It's just like, do you want to run this program? Yes, I do. Waiting for this thing to finish. All the major stuff, once it comes up, I'll put it on my main screen. Okay, so I'm gonna, let's see right here. Okay, so you're gonna be installing Android Studios. Again, you can just click next for most of this. Next, next, next. It looks like it's installing right here. So it's installing right now, and I think again I'll pause it and resume once it finishes. Okay, it looks like it's still going. Okay, so looks like the installation completed. So we're gonna click next here, and you should just have the screen Android Studio. So we're gonna finish this, and we're gonna start Android Studios. Fine. So I'm bringing it over to here. It's a little big, as you can see. So I'm just gonna put this to size. There we go. Okay. Now, here's the thing. You may not see a screen that looks like this. This is coming up for me because I already have projects and stuff installed. But regardless of what screen, actually, you know what, let me show you the screen that you might end up having. Okay. So what you may have is you may have a screen that looks something like this right here. Welcome to Android Studios, create a project from scratch, open existing project, all this stuff, right? So if you end up with a screen that looks like this, what you're going to do is you're going to click Get from VCS. Okay, and you're going to click that. And what you should end up with is a screen that looks similar to this project from version control. You should end up with a screen that looks something like this. Okay. So you can see you should be able to click this GitHub thing right here. And what you should do is you should have a thing where you can add an account. Right. So you should have a screen where you can add an account if you click up here, or the button actually might be for you like right here-ish. And if you click that, you should see something that either says login via GitHub or login with token. It actually should look like a little plus sign right here, basically. You know what? Actually, let me see. Can I unlink this? So let's say login with token, right? So when you log in with your token, what you're going to do is you're not going to click generate. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to take, remember this token we copied from here? You're going to take this, you're going to copy it in, and you're going to stick it in right here, and then you press login. And then what you should see is you should see your username appear right here like it does for me. So what you'll then see is you should see your little profile picture up here like I have it for me. Now, the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to essentially bring everything together. So what we just did with the token, right, when you log in via token, that is basically linking your GitHub account to your Android Studios account, right, or to Android Studios. So any projects you have or anything, they should show up right here. And I'll give you a little tour of what that actually looks like. The last thing we're going to do is we're actually going to bring in our first repository. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to, I have the link in my slides right here. So slide 28, I have the link right here. So you're going to take this, you're going to copy it. Okay, so copy. And you're going to stick it in right here. And if you made a custom folder for your Git projects, this is where you would change this directory here by clicking this button right here to go to the directory you made. So like, for example, if you made it where I made it, user, student, documents, let's see, where is it? GitHub. And then you can create a new folder in here. All right, so right click, new directory. You can call this like RobotGo 2023 or something like that. Okay, and then you could clone it in here. So you would press OK, and then you could just clone it in there, press clone. And when you press clone, so let's do that actually. What should happen is you should be greeted with a page that looks something like this. So you can see right here, it opened up a new page. I named my directory what I named it. And it says Gradle project sync is in progress. So we're just going to wait for it to finish being in progress. And at the end of this, what you should see is you should see that this page, you can see that most of the text here is white. You'll see some files come up here on the left. And you'll also see that the color of these things change. So some of it will be purple, some of it will be yellow. Excuse me. And once you see the color change, that's how you know that everything has been like brought in properly. So I'm going to pause the recording and resume it once the colors have changed here. Okay, so it looks like it finished loading. I'm going to resume the recording, and you can see here that the colors did change. So this is purple, this is yellow, and all of our files have showed up right here. So quick tour of what this looks like here. So you can see that we have 2 folders here in our project, FTC Robot Controller and Team Code. So all the code that you guys are gonna write is going to show up here in this Team Code folder. And you can see that I already have some files right here. This is from last year's RobotGo class. And opening these, you should see that everything loads properly. No errors, if there's any big red marks, that means it doesn't work. But you can see here, we got the nice colors here, purple, green, orange, yellow, and this means that everything is working properly and everything is going exactly as expected. If you could see this, that means that you're fully good to go and everything here has been installed properly. Now, the other thing I want to quickly show you is this commits. So this is like the Git page, basically. All of the GitHub work that you do will be in this folder. So any pushing, pulling, cloning will show up here, as well as in these little icons right here. And like I said, we're going to talk about this more this week. But the main thing is, if you see this page, if you're able to look at these different files and the colors show up and nothing is like red or glaring, that means you're good to go. So this has been the installation day for RobotGo. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. But yeah, that's pretty much everything we went over. So I will see you guys this Thursday. Let's see, I believe it is going to be the 21st. So I will see you guys then. And yeah, have a good day. Bye-bye.